I'm absolutely passionate about nature and gardening. Not just the beauty of it and the cycle of life, but I just love the fact that it has healing powers. Even just sitting in the garden reading a book is completely therapeutic. It started very quietly. I got pins and needles in my hand and I'd broken my wrist and thought it was related to that, but it actually turned out that I'd got a generalised problem with my nerves. I've been on treatment since '97, and then in 2007 I got extremely ill. Ended up in hospital for 3 months and came out in a wheelchair. So I went from being a very active, very dynamic paediatrician, mother, athlete. I ran, I cycled, I did triathlon, to being in a wheelchair. People have a very different approach to people in wheelchairs, and quite surprisingly, you're often patronised and people speak to you as if you're an idiot, even though there's nothing wrong with my brain. My brain's perfectly functional. We had to make a lot of adjustments to the house, and our house was not a suitable house for someone who was disabled, but we loved where we lived. One of the social workers just sort of said, "Why don't you just move house, that would be easier." That was a very upsetting remark. I found that very difficult to cope with. It was like, well, it doesn't matter anymore because you're disabled, so you live where it's best for someone who's disabled, not where it's best for you as a person.
When we knew she was becoming really unwell, it fundamentally changed both our lives massively. What Helena's gone through is severe, to say the least. But even people with a tenth of her problems need support and need compassion and need understanding so that they can live the best lives that they can. And it's a tribute to Helena's personality that she has managed to do that even with all the challenges that the disease has brought.
When I found out about my mum's diagnosis, and especially when the effects of it became apparent, it changed my mindset from sort of a proactive one to a destructive one. Because as a young boy, the main person you're trying to please is your mum. It's felt like she wasn't going to be around for very long, or if she was, she would be a totally different person. That became, I'd rather be numb or gone than have to experience the pain that I'm experiencing through watching my mum go through what she's going through. There's still obviously a dark tinge to that little boy who hoped to grow up with a happy and healthy mum.
The last form that we had to fill in for my personal independence payment took Ian and I together 5 hours to fill in. We've got 5 degrees between us. We're medically qualified and we couldn't understand the form. They are deliberately designed, it feels, to make them difficult to fill in, to dissuade people from claiming benefits. It's really demoralising. I think that's something that policymakers really should understand better. They should be really in much simpler language. My hopes for the future for everyone with NCDs is that they're valued and involved in planning their own care, that they have a louder voice to policymakers, that they're much more involved right from the beginning. I absolutely loved my job, absolutely loved it. I wanted to be a paediatrician since I was 12. I think I hadn't realised how much I was defined by being a paediatrician. And that took a lot of adjusting to, and I still find it difficult to go back to the children's hospital where I worked. As a healthcare professional, I felt very strongly that I would still like to do that, and I found ways of doing that. So there's the healing garden and making that available to the community. Doctors or social prescription link workers can prescribe time in the garden instead of, say, antidepressants for someone who's got anxiety. And I feel really proud that I've managed to get to the point where we're accepted as a social prescription. I'm also very proud of the advocacy I do for palliative care and for people living with NCDs. Being a trustee on a palliative care charity, doing work for the NCD Alliance, writing a report about the impact of the aid cuts in the UK on provision for people living with NCDs.
The fact that even with so much that she has to do to just maintain her life, she still gives more time than anyone I know to other people. She's learnt that kindness to others is kindness to herself.
I think it's difficult to understand if you haven't been through it. You learn a lot about yourself. I was extremely independent and felt very strongly about, as a woman, being a role model for my boys. And I think that's what you have to learn to hang on to, that actually inside you haven't changed. You may be disabled, may have illnesses, but you're not defined by that.